What do you want from me? Why do you care for me? Why do you know?
Welcome back, everyone. It's Charlie. The Madam Web movie was released recently, and as I said during my review of that, it's a total mess, just to say the least. Normally, after something like that, we just expect Sony, or any studio for that matter, to just pack it up, call it a day, roll on to their next movie in their Spider-Man universe of spin-off movies like the Kraven movie and Venom 3, which are coming later this year, and just pretend like Madam Web never happened, like there is no Madam Web movie. We have no idea what you're talking about.
So brilliant, and
just write off the loss and move on to your next big Spider-Man spin-off movie. But a couple days after the release, some of the trades were reporting that the Madam Web movie may have just killed Sony's larger Spider-Man connected universe of movies that they were planning on setting up with all their different characters crossing over. We've been talking about this for a while, like very clearly there were a bunch of post-credit scenes setting up a bunch of crossovers with Venom, with Morbius, with the MCU version of the Vulture, Sinister Six plans, Spider-Man related plans. And it turns out sometimes movies can bomb big enough to kill other movie plans in the same franchise. So we'll break it all down and why this might actually be a good thing for Sony. Like this might be the wake-up call they needed for all their live-action Spider-Man spin-off plans. Looking at you, Spider-Man Beyond the Spider-Verse, you're going to be fantastic. You can see all those people sitting in the background going, don't rope us in with all those weird live-action Spider-Man spin-off movies. Our movies are fantastic. And that is true. It is weird that they can make such great animated Spider-Verse movies, but then you see stuff like Madam Web hit theaters. Like, how did this happen? So if you're brand new to the channel, be sure to subscribe to get all the videos. The Deadpool and Wolverine trailer also just came out the last week. Like, they're having a really good time at the MCU right now. It is a real big renaissance for the X-Men just in general this year, because we have X-Men 97 also coming up before Deadpool and Wolverine. But Marvel's actually using the Deadpool and Wolverine movie to address a lot of their ongoing issues they've had the past couple of years behind the camera and in front of the camera, just on a story level.
I smell what you're stepping in, Sensei. Your little cinematic universe is about to change forever.
Right now, Sony doesn't really have that kind of movie coming out this year. In Spider-Man Beyond the Spider-Verse, for example, still a couple years away, technically it's also animated, even though it is possible for Sony to use that movie to course-correct a lot of their missteps and movie flops with the live-action Spider-Man movies like Morbius and Madam Web. And if Madam Web makes you worried about Kraven or like Venom 3 coming out later this year, we also just heard that Sony wants to rush out Spider-Man 4 with Tom Holland for a 2025 release next year, which is way too fast. It takes way longer to make those movies. Apparently, Kevin Feige is also trying to do everything he can to try and prevent that from happening. So it's also possible that Sony now ruins Spider-Man 4 in their quest to bleed the Spider-Man franchise for all it's worth, fresh off of Madam Web. But what happened with the Madam Web movie? Why does one bad movie destroy Sony's plans for their upcoming Spider-Man crossover movies and larger franchise that essentially would be a Sinister Six franchise with a lot of actual Spider-Man in it? Well, as it turns out, Madam Web is just the latest example of them rushing movies out too quickly. Morbius, it's Morbin time. Like, we made all the Morbin time jokes when I did my Madam Web review. A lot of the problems the Madam Web movie ran into are things that Sony has been doing for a while now. Morbius and Madam Web are just like the latest examples of the results of that. All in their ongoing quest the last several years to try and create their own Spider-Man universe separate from the MCU. To be fair to Sony, they still hold the rights to Spider-Man in the movies, and even an act of God will not make them give the rights back to Marvel. They make way too much money on even just the regular main Spider-Man movies. Their rights also give them access to over 900 different characters that they can use in any movie that they want, so naturally they want to try and capitalize some of those other 900 characters. So at least theoretically, they should be able to make at least a couple good live-action movies. In the past, though, they only focused on the Peter Parker Spider-Man major tentpole movies every couple years like clockwork, starting with Tobey Maguire's Spider-Man. Like, all their energy would go into just making one Spider-Man movie every couple of years. They did that first trilogy, then after Spider-Man 3 didn't live up to expectations financially, instead of trying to do Spider-Man spin-offs with other characters like Venom at the time, which it sounds like Sony had planned on actually doing if they had done Spider-Man 4 with Tobey Maguire. Like, they might have done more spin-offs at that time. But they chose to reboot with Andrew Garfield into the Amazing Spider-Man movies, and a couple years later, the exact same thing happened, and they forged their sharing deal with Marvel for Tom Holland's Spider-Man in the MCU. All in the hopes that their partnership with Marvel, who had just been doing banger after banger, earning crazy money, spinning up through the Avengers movies, things in the MCU had generally been going very, very well for them. Sony hoped that their partnership would help them create a stronger financial return on all the Spider-Man stuff just in general. And so far, their partnership with Marvel has led to the last 2 Spider-Man solo movies earning multiple billions of dollars, which Sony takes the majority of box office profits from per their sharing deal. So Sony has been doing pretty well based on this partnership with Marvel. But that is just for the main Tom Holland Spider-Man movies. Everything else is just pure Sony on their own. Marvel largely controls the creative of the main Spider-Man movies with Tom Holland production. They take the merchandising profits. Sometimes those can wind up being way more money than the actual box office on the movies, so Marvel does pretty good on this too. Right now they're continuing the sharing deal for Tom Holland's Spider-Man 4, but their deals only last for one solo movie and a couple cameos at a time, and Tom Holland separately has to sign his own contract with Sony first for future Spider-Man movies. Sony's contract with Marvel is like a totally separate thing. Tom Holland doesn't have a contract with Marvel. Sony has a contract with Marvel. Tom Holland's contract is just with Sony for Spider-Man. That means if Sony doesn't renew their deal with Marvel after Spider-Man 4, they can still make Spider-Man 5 and 6 with Tom Holland on their own again. And after Madame Web, I don't know if we actually want that. What Madame Web is doing now, according to the trades who claim insiders from the studio have spoken to them from Sony, is it's given Sony their come-to-Jesus wake-up call. It sounds like they sorely needed this year for the live-action Spider-Man movies they've been making. Like I said, we leave Spider-Man Beyond the Spider-Verse, all the Spider-Verse movies out of this because they're all fantastic. It's crazy that their live-action spin-offs are so weak when their Spider-Verse movies have been so strong, but the real cause, I think, is mostly Sony's desire for money. It's a very classic case of trying to rush movies out to hit release dates and bolster profits each year when clearly a lot of their live-action spin-off movies needed way better scripts and just way more time to cook. If you look at the production cycle on all their non-Tom Holland Spider-Man live-action movies, all of them are made at warp speed. So no wonder why the scripts on all those movies aren't so hot and why they just don't seem like as big fare as the Tom Holland main Spider-Man movies. I would liken them more to like B movies. Like if you think of Tom Holland's main Spider-Man movies as like big A-list, huge movies, think of like the Venom movies, for instance, as being solid B movies. So if Sony's just been rushing stuff out the door like, no, we don't need more time, just get this movie out, who cares, we'll move on to the next one. No wonder the movies start to get worse and worse. Turns out Morbius was just an early warning of Morbin time to come. Clearly, Sony did not learn their lesson with that, decided to rush Madame Web out the theaters, and it was a total mess. You can say some nice things about the cinematography in that movie. The actresses have all done great work before, but the script for the movie was terrible. Their dialogue right out of something from the early 2000s. The movie slept on all the actual cool Spider-Woman stuff that it set up, and during production of the movie, according to Dakota Johnson, they completely changed the entire movie, removed all the actual Spider-Man references that were intended on setting up Andrew Garfield's version of Spider-Man. Apparently, Madame Web started life being a Terminator Final Destination kind of prequel to Andrew Garfield's Spider-Man. He was supposed to be the baby born to Emma Roberts' Mary Parker. That's why there were so many weird moments in the movie where they almost say the baby's name Peter a couple times, but then stop short. And at the end of the movie, Uncle Ben, played by Adam Scott, visits her hospital and they almost say the baby's name out loud again. Andrew Garfield was also supposed to make a cameo in a version of Madame Web, but no surprise, before they started filming, he said, "Thanks, but no thanks, like no way I'm gonna go anywhere close to this," and they lost their version of Spider-Man. So they basically pulled a Morbius on Madame Web at the last minute. Morbius had the exact same issue. Tons of Spider-Man references to all 3 live-action Spider-Man versions, Andrew Garfield, Tobey Maguire, Tom Holland. Then at the last minute, they removed all of them from the theatrical cut of the movie and just left it in the post-credit scene, setting up Sinister Six, forming with MCU Vulture, and calling out Spider-Man. You may have heard the producers behind Madame Web saying the reason why they didn't have a post-credit scene is because they felt like people had gotten tired of all the crossovers and multiverse stuff, when really what probably happened is they lost all their Spider-Man stuff and they just kind of wanted to put Madame Web off in the corner and pretend like it never happened. What are you talking about? We never intended on this movie crossing over with other movies. This was just meant to be off by itself. It was never going to be connected to anything, when clearly that is not the case. Clearly, they were trying to use this movie to set up Andrew Garfield's Spider-Man. Sony's been making these plans to cross over all these Venom universe Spider-Man characters. And what you've had the last couple of years now with like diminishing returns on these live-action Spider-Man spin-off movies is Sony's larger plans to cross them all over on this Venom universe with Spider-Man in general has just been in chaos for a couple of years. Like, who's going to be on this Sinister 16 that they called out? Which version of Spider-Man are they going to use? Is this going to be connected to the MCU Tom Holland Spider-Man at all? All these very important core questions, and apparently Sony still has absolutely no idea. And before Madam Web this year, they were rolling ahead full steam in this big crossover Spider-Man franchise. And what they sorely needed was to just slow their plans down, delay as much as they need to just do some separate quality control, let everything cook until they figure it all out. Marvel over on the MCU side of things, like literally just had this wake-up call last year in 2023. 2024 is their big turnaround year where we start to see the fruits of their changes, in the movies at least. All these positive changes they made behind the scenes for the TV shows didn't really start until Daredevil Born Again, which they're filming right now. That won't be released till next year, so it'll be a little bit longer to see the changes in the TV shows, but the movie stuff we'll see in Deadpool and Wolverine. But the whole idea is that Kevin Feige got the message, like, oh, we need to actually fix a lot of these issues, and they're doing that right now. Like, we're going to be seeing that in a couple months. Here's the thing, though. You'd think that Sony would have learned their lesson after a couple big box office bombs, but we'll see. If the recent reports about Spider-Man 4 are true, it's possible that Sony might also wind up ruining Spider-Man 4, too, fresh off Madam Web. Let me know in the comments, how do you think that Sony is going to fix all their live-action Spider-Man spin-off movies? And if they do wind up using a live-action version of Spider-Man, which version do you want that to be? Amy Pascal also clarified that they do have a live-action Miles Morales movie, but they don't plan on making that till well after Spider-Man Beyond the Spider-Verse hits theaters, so it's going to be a couple years before we actually see live-action Miles Morales. He could wind up being that big crossover live-action Spider-Man that they use in all their spin-off movies. There's a bunch of big stuff coming up this week, a bunch of big releases. I'll try to do videos for everything, so make sure to enable alerts for my channel so you don't miss anything. Click here to learn about Henry Cavill joining the MCU as a character, and click here for my Madam Web review. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you guys in the next one.